Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this continuing series on the third Karmapas, Mahamudra prayer. And today we carry on with verse 6, which is his prayer for us to, in this life and in future lives, always meet the right path. He says a path which is neither against the Dharma, so whereby what we are doing is what we mean by a path, what we're doing with our body, speech and mind is actually anti-Dharma, producing harm, not at all in accord with the Buddha's intention. Or, less grave than that, something where we've misunderstood the teachings, so the path isn't quite right. So last time we explored the first line, which is about the basis for the Mahamudra path. And this basis is an understanding that all is mind and what is this mind, and how we must avoid the two extremes of either nihilism on the one hand, or eternalism, realism, rayism on the other hand. So today we carry on, and based on that understanding of what all our Mahamudra work is, with mind which is everything and nothing, then what path do we follow? And the Karmapa's prayer is for us to follow the supreme path. There are many paths, so he wants us to follow the very, very best one. And he describes this as the path of the two accumulations, which we mentioned last time, which are an accumulation of goodness, basic human goodness, and this is mainly on a relative level in our interaction with the world, where we create useful, positive, strong karma. And then so goodness, and the other accumulation is wisdom, which is mainly on the ultimate level, whereby we are constantly aware of the void, dreamlike, interdependent nature of all we're doing on this relative level. So they're called two accumulations, but in fact when we get into the reality of them, there cannot be two things. You cannot just have wisdom all by itself, that kind of wisdom. It's the wisdom of what is happening on the relative level. And what we're doing on the relative level cannot be the supreme path without the wisdom to accompany it. So then, to speak briefly of that, because like so many things in this prayer, we have a reference to something about which there are acres of teaching about the two accumulations. So this is just to mention them, and then you need to, as your Dhamma studies continue, learn more and more and more through the 6 paramitas and so on. So anyway, here, one is the accumulation of goodness. It's called punya, and it means strength, power, a richness, a wealth of qualities. And unfortunately, we can't really do that overnight. It's something that develops from lifetime to lifetime, and it's a building up of strength through many, many actions which are kind to oneself and to others. It is summed up as the first 5 paramita, perfections. It is mainly based on generosity, whereby we give materially as much as we can, and we give of ourselves in terms of being reliable friends and good companions for our fellow beings, humans, animals, other beings. And we give the teachings of the Dharma. We build up goodness, and this is such a real thing. It's what we each carry, more or less. Some of our extraordinary human beings, great teachers, and not all of them great teachers, have so much goodness and so little darkness. And other human beings, unfortunately, carry a lot of darkness and not much power. Now, our Mahamudra practice, which is the highest of all practices, is necessarily based on the Bodhisattva path, whereby we're dedicated to helping the world, our fellow beings, all beings, including ourselves. And so we need goodness. How can you alleviate poverty in others if you have nothing to give? How can you be a reliable friend if you don't have strength? Strength through meditation, strength through diligence and forbearance, whereby you can put up with difficulties to help them, and so on, and pure ethics. So we have all the studies of the first 5 paramita, perfections, but mainly based on generosity. So as we are developing kind material actions with our body, kind speech, and behind all of that, kind, non-harmful bodhisattva intention, then we are cultivating this punya, goodness. And it will emerge in future lives as the fact that we do have resources, material resources. We do have friends. We live in a place of safety, and we have access to Dharma teachings to share with other people. We have a richness, a wealth, a strength. Now that's one aspect of punya. But remember, even Buddha Shakyamuni in his lifetime, and in our current times, the Karmapas, 17th Karmapa, 16th Karmapa, they also have faced difficulties. So we shouldn't expect that our accumulation of punya, of goodness, will just make each and every lifetime to come a joyride. It won't. All the way up to our last life, we must expect difficulties from the outside. So punya also means we have the strength to deal with whatever difficulties come to us. Like the 16th Karmapa had the strength and the wisdom to deal with the Chinese takeover of Tibet and so on. Our present Karmapa has the strength to deal with the difficulties he's faced in his life. So punya is not just out there in terms of wealth and resources and so on. It is in here. It is a strength so that no matter what comes to us, we can face it well and turn everything into Dharma. The good times and the bad times. In the good times, we don't forget Dharma and just go off having fun, selfish fun. And in the bad times, we can turn health difficulties, life situation difficulties, and so on, from ourselves and from others, into positive circumstances. How we do that, you'll find in the teachings on the perfections, you'll find in the teachings on 7 points of mind training. There's a wealth of teachings about this. So there's the accumulation of goodness. But by itself, it will not take us to enlightenment, and it will not accomplish Mahamudra. We need, at the same time, wisdom, prajna, jhana. And this means that we understand the voidness of all of that, what we're doing physically, us embodied in a human life, in a material universe with other people, all of which feels so real. And in particular, there's a feeling of me here and a universe out there which is different. So in the enormous teachings on Majjhimaka, middle way, interdependence, and so on, and as we'll find later on in this prayer, where this is developed, then there is no inner and outer. What seem to be inner and outer are all images, light in our mind. And what appears in our mind moment after moment, is caused through interdependence in the moment, just now, and through the interdependence through time, which is the play of karma, cause and effect. So we learn very practically not to make things too solid, not to get involved with things and people as though they were real and solid. Always to remember this dreamlike, ephemeral, ungraspable quality of things, as all of those profound teachings on shunyata, voidness, emptiness, tell us. So then we need to fuse these two, so that while we are performing good actions, let's take a simple example of material generosity. We don't get stuck in the idea of me, the giver. We don't get stuck in projections of the receiver, the poor person, the person needing help. And we don't get stuck in a solid idea of making good karma, doing a good deed. That's very practical advice. And what makes that practical advice work is understanding the teachings on shunyata. So we need to study, as we heard in a previous verse, to study, to reflect, to meditate, so the reality of voidness never leaves us. And in particular, through the Mahamudra teachings on stilling the mind and insight, we keep that utter stillness, which is not separate from all the play of interdependence, moment after moment. So the actual path, as we'll see later in more verses, is time on the cushion, time in the world. So what we learn on the cushion about the nature of our mind, we take into our time in the world and our development of punya, because we will definitely need that strength of good karma. Even for meditation, without the goodness, the human goodness of kindness and love and sharing and respect for each other, ahimsa, no harm, then the real truth of our mind cannot emerge. It cannot emerge. It's like the old days of developing photos. If the right chemicals aren't in the bath, the photo can't come out. If we want to understand the nature of mind, our mind needs to be rich in human goodness and purity, which is what punya is all about. Now, this path of the two accumulations should be free from exaggeration and denial. Exaggeration means we don't turn it into something solid. Me, the Dharma practicer, doing good deeds, building up punya for a future life. We don't make it more than it is. It's dreamlike activity in a dreamlike existence. But then at the same time we don't deny the amazing goodness of it and the amazing wisdom of it. We don't just, even though we know it's like a dream, it's like a conjuration, and we're acting in a world like a hypnotist, a conjurer, dealing with illusions. Nevertheless, we do not underestimate the need, because the suffering is so great in our fellow beings, and we do not underestimate the tremendous benefit of it. So we need to find the right attitude. Just right, like a guitar string. Not too tense, not too loose, not making it too solid, not just dismissing it because everything's illusion. Now the next line says, if we follow such a path all the way through and according to our Guru's guidance on Mahamudra, where will this take us in the end? What will be enlightenment? And it's described as the non-abiding nirvana. It's nirvana, which in itself doesn't mean anything. It means, it's a negative term. It means no more suffering, ended. It doesn't describe something. This is nirvana. It tells us what's ended. So we find in the Buddha's teaching two descriptions of nirvana. One of them is the nirvana, the freedom from suffering, that arhats achieve and that the Shravaka path achieves. So one actually really does get out of suffering forever. One goes to a state of mind from which there will never be samsaric rebirth, suffering rebirth. So this is a path of extraction where we remove ourselves from the world, worldly concerns, worldly activities, and we cut off harmful karma, in fact, any karma. We cut off the causes of karma, the mind poisons, desire, aversion, ignorance, and we cut off anything that leads to that, and in particular, any notion, any feeling of a me, an identity, a self. So this takes one through meditation practice, very, very, very powerful, strict, long-term shamatha practice of one-pointedness in peace. This takes one to a state of mind where, as far as the arhats are concerned, they feel they are liberated forever, and there's not even a feeling or the thought liberated forever. They go into an absorption of total peace. So this is, in terms of Mahamudra, one extreme. We are not practicing the path of goodness and wisdom to go into that total absorption of peace, free from everything worldly. We're not going there. We're free from that extreme. Our path would take us to the Buddha's enlightenment, not the Arhat's enlightenment, the Buddha's enlightenment, where there is limitless, perfect, magnificent compassion for each and every being, and a being with existence, or you could say mind, in all of its facets. But even though the Buddha's compassion and outreach is there for every single sentient being, and that's what we'll achieve, it is not involved. It has none of the samsaric blemishes because of the wisdom. It's not taking people and situations for solid. It's not getting a personal involvement, all of which we call samsara. Once there's the personal involvement, there's the pain, and things become very solid and real. All of that's gone. So it's not a total absorption into nothing but peace, the arhat's absorption. It is perfect being with everything and everyone, everything that mind manifests. Yet, there is no suffering, there is nothing but compassion and compassionate outreach, activity. So the Buddha's enlightenment is free from the arhat's peace and worldly samsara. It's called free from the extremes of existence, samsara, and peace, the non-abiding nirvana. And as we practice Mahamudra, we'll learn not to get caught up in voidness as some kind of just empty blankness, and we'll learn not to get caught up in worldly existence like we used to before. This all comes in later verses. So the Karmapa's prayer is that we have this unerring path which will bring the best benefit, not just for ourselves, but it will be the highest thing you could ever accomplish. There is nothing higher, there is nothing better, there is nothing freer, there is nothing wiser, there is nothing with more love and kindness and compassion, and above anything else, there's nothing else with a finer quality of peace. So it's the very best achievement for you and for me. But then not just for oneself, because automatically at the same time, by being in that state, if we call it a state, non-abiding nirvana, then that is the ultimate benefit for others, because from that, as we learn in the Buddha nature teachings, flows spontaneously and without any concept, the very best help for others. And to understand that, we need to study the Bodhisattva path in all of its levels, its 13 levels, the worldly levels, the 10 Bodhisattva levels, where bit by bit this gets purer and purer, vaster and vaster. And then at the end, total enlightenment, non-abiding nirvana. There we, through looking at the details of the journey, we get some kind of understanding about what tremendous benefit and outreach this is for our fellow beings. If we want to love and care for each other, there is nothing better. So that's it, the Karmapa's prayer, and which becomes our prayer to have the best understanding, the basis. On that understanding, follow the very best path, the two accumulations, and then through that to achieve the non-abiding nirvana. And to do this without any misunderstanding or without any serious misinterpretation, which means what we're doing is actually the opposite of that, goes against Dharma. May this be your path. May this be my path. This is the Mahamudra path, and we are so very, very privileged to be following it. Practice well. Speak soon.